Welcome to the Wednesday, December 14th, 2022 Planning Board meeting for the town of Raymond. We do have a workshop scheduled for this evening. I've asked Sandy to actually modify that to a meeting only so that we can get the report of the site walk in. So I'm not going to read since we have no applications before us, I'm not going to read our whole intro, but we will need to take attendance so that we make an official meeting so we can vote. So if you'd start us off, Mike.
Mike Richmond.
Mike D'Arcangelo.
Greg Foster.
Robert O'Neill.
Ed Kranich. Mark Childs.
Kevin Woodbury.
There we go. We have a full board. We have no minutes for right now, so we're going right into the site walk just to get, I didn't want 2 months to go by before we could get the site walk into the record. So I've just tried to summarize this a little bit. I would appreciate it if anybody thinks anything is wrong or would like to add some stuff to it. It's just kind of quick and brief. The Planning Board conducted a site walk at 402 Webb Mills Road on 3 December 2022. The purpose of the site walk was to obtain background information concerning an application submitted by Ms. Nicole Starrett for the development of the property. The property is in the rural residential district, and the applicant obtained conditional use authorization from the ZBA on January 8th, 2021. Ms. Nicole Starrett conducted the site walk, stating that the firm she hired to develop the application, Main Land, was not available. Consequently, important information that is usually present at site walks was not available, specifically things like property line markings, topographical map, proposed clearing, buffer maintenance, etc. Ms. Starrett further informed the board that Mainland would not be starting the application process until sometime in mid-January 2023. Consequently, the board may consider returning at some point for a more productive site walk. Great. Additions? Anybody?
None. Sounds accurate to me.
Sounds okay?
Accurate, yep.
Good. Alex?
I got nothing.
Jim?
Do we want to give them any insight as to items we want to see on the application going forward, or is this just basically all the observations from the site walk?
Just basically the observations from the site walk.
Fair enough.
Do you have anything that we missed?
I just would say I want to see the wetland and any stream delineation.
Yep. We'll add that on after the buffer maintenance wetland.
From our observation, it appeared that some filling had occurred, but at this point, I don't know how we'd be able to accumulate what had been done.
Is the driveway angle, which we never really looked at, is that?
Yeah, that's a Wayne concern. I think Wayne can chime in on that, but he has a concern where it goes by the corner of that house that there may be not enough adequate width or turning radius to get a emergency vehicle down there.
Wayne's right below you. So Wayne, would you?
Yes, Jim summed that up for you very well. That would be our concerns. And also just want to verify the grade going down into that lower level parking lot.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Kevin, you okay?
may I be
Yeah,
allowed
I'm good.
to address the board on this issue?
No. Kevin, you okay?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay. Could I just get a motion then to accept the sidewalk?
So we're going to wait until we have an application before we sort of discuss.
Yes, we have no application to discuss.
Okay. Because like many, I have many concerns, but
But from the sidewalk?
no, well, yeah, from the sidewalk. but-
Okay, well, those you should mention them.
Okay, then I guess, looking at the findings of fact from the Zoning Board of Appeals, findings of fact number 6, the applicant has proposed after-the-fact approval for an existing contractor use in order to continue to operate their family business, start snow and landscape services. So when we were on the sidewalk, I saw a bunch of firewood, and from number 6, I'm sort of thinking that the approval for a conditional use would not include them expanding their contractor use to selling firewood on that site, off that site.
Okay,
And so I guess
so the firewood usage is a concern.
that's a question going forward.
I thought she said they were not selling the
The
firewood.
one, she said there was a.
Right, but
Yeah,
I'm
but
wondering
it's
if they
part
would
of
ever
the-
be able to.
Right. Anyone
Is that
else?
something we want to ask the code officer now, or do we wait till we have an application?
Wait, do we have an application?
Yeah, it's an application.
Right now, they don't even
All
have
right.
standing.
Could I get a motion to accept then, sidewalk?
Motion to accept sidewalk report?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor? And opposed? Okay, sidewalk's done. Sandy, I can probably clean this up a little bit, capture a couple things and drop it off with you for the minutes.
That sounds wonderful.
Okay, next up is our workshop for the proposed ordinance. It's all up to you.
All right. So I'm assuming you guys got the list in the packet. There's probably maybe one or two things I need to add to this, but I'm trying to figure out how to try and combine some of these to try and keep it like 10 or less, just because I don't want to overwhelm. I mean, it will be, we're not doing town meeting this year. It's going to be referendum style again. So we've been doing pretty well the last couple of years with not losing voters, just having them not vote. Most people are still voting on the land use items, which was my fear going to that type of voting style. People wouldn't know what they're voting on and they would just not answer. But we did pretty good. So, but we definitely don't want to do too many. So I think some of these can still be combined. So I'm working on that. But so if we want to go through each one, the first one is mandatory. It's not an optional one. This is a correction that DEP is making us do. This actually might change. Our attorney's been working with actually the AG's office because it was the attorney who suggested this change and DEP rejected it. So he wanted to know why. And we think we know why now. So right now I'm proposing it as an amendment. But really all it does is it removes the variance option that we put in for single families in the shoreland zone. We put that in last year. And DEP is saying that we can't have that in there because it's less strict than Chapter 1000. Even though it doesn't affect a setback to the water, it's just for a road or side setback, which DEP typically doesn't care about. So that's kind of the unusual thing here. So anyways, that would come out. The second one is a continuation of that DEP order. This is changes to actually, again, two things that we changed last year, although one of them is the solar energy system definition. They had a minor tweak to that. Within the shoreland zone, they have a specific definition that we have to use for solar energy systems. So up until the last 2 years, within the shoreland zoning ordinance, a town had the ability to kind of wordsmith definitions as long as it didn't change the intent of what Chapter 1000 says. In the last couple of years, DEP's changed their mind and is now, we want you to adopt this specific wording. So according to the attorney, they're seeing a lot of this from the state, basically mandating that towns adopt language that's exactly to Chapter 1000, the shoreline zoning guidelines. So that's what you see here, the solar energy system definition, the structure definition, and I think that's it for that one.
Is that basically just to keep it consistent amongst the towns?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And one of the things that I really don't like, and I've been trying to work away from, is definitions that don't match between land use and shoreline. So last year we went through and actually the last 2 years we've gone through and corrected definitions so they all match. And so now we'll have solar energy system different in land use and shoreland, but I don't think it really is a big deal. And we can't really amend the land use to match the shoreland because then it would completely go against the point of the solar energy system ordinance, because it's solar power to meet the needs of allowed residential uses. So that's it for those two.
Alex, I think if you want to consolidate, to me, I think you can consolidate those first two items because they're clerical changes from what you reviewed.
Yeah, I think so. That would be fine. I mean, they have to be approved. I don't know what happens if they got voted down because the DEP order, I think the DEP order would still be in effect. Basically, what they're saying is our ordinance doesn't matter. We're telling you this is what your ordinance is. But that order says that the next opportunity to amend, you have to amend. So we could put those two together. I think it'll be fine. And probably even one of the others later on. Number 3, 23-03 was one of the, I don't know what that noise is.
What is that?
It keeps doing that.
Hey, Graham and Eric, we're hearing like almost kind of like a feedback noise, but I think it might be Wayne. Wayne,
can
can you
mute, Wayne?
possibly mute for a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
We'll see if that fixes it. I think it will, but we'll find out. So the codified ordinance, actually, last night was a special town meeting for the codified ordinance, and I think we had 10 or 11 people in the room, and everyone voted in favor of it. So that did pass. So we'll have that up and running hopefully in the next few weeks. But during that codification process, they found an error in the open space section of the land use ordinance. And that language points to, on the second page of the 23.3, no common driveway shall provide access to more than 3 lots except as provided in 300-13.3, which previously it was Article 13, Section C6, I believe, and that didn't exist. C6 didn't exist in the ordinance. So, Jim, this was one of the ones that I was wondering if you had any idea what it's supposed to be. I think you had looked originally and you weren't sure. Oh, you're muted.
You're muted, Jim.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether it's referencing, because my guess is that since this open space was done, we've added backlot driveways. And I was trying to see if there was a correlation between the two, but there isn't.
But never more than 3 lots.
No more than 3 lots, never.
Never.
Where the 3 lots came from. That's just, I know we have some old subdivisions where that might have been the case, but I think we've tried to clean that up in recent years.
Why don't we just get rid of that?
You want to
except-
strike it out? Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. Right now, it's just pointing back to itself just so that we
Right.
had something in there, but
Because if they go more than 3 lots, it's gotta be a private road at that point. And I think with the back lot, you can gain access possibly up to 3 lots, but you can't gain new access for more than 2, so.
Mhm.
And in most cases, we would probably, this would be reviewed under subdivision, so, and we'd probably ask for a private, in that case, I think we'd ask for a private road.
right. Okay, sounds good. Number 4, this is the update to criteria and standards, which came about after the school proposed the dumpster pad within the side setback that we allowed because according to the attorney's interpretation, the ordinance allowed it as long as it was screened. So, and Jim, I don't know if you want to chime in on this one. This was my first take at it, which essentially requires, outside of the commercial district and the industrial district, would require that special features, storage areas, machinery installations, service areas, loading areas, and similar type structures would have to meet setbacks and be screened as required for
I would agree with that.
buffering. In the commercial district, there's no side setback, for example, so it wouldn't matter. This would really only be for residential districts.
But even
So-
in the commercial district, don't we require them to be screened?
We do, yeah. So they could be screened still closer to the side or rear line. As long as they're screened, then it's fine.
I'm just curious too, under special features, do we define what special features are?
That's a good question. I don't know. Let me look.
I'm looking real quick.
I don't believe we do because I think that came up. And I think the definition is basically what's in that section there. And we can make one. Yeah, I don't see a definition here.
Because it doesn't really, even in this section, it doesn't really necessarily mention dumpsters, right?
No.
So what's the board's preference? Would you like us to add dumpsters in this section, or we want to define special
Call it
features?
exposed storage area.
And that's, I mean, to me, dumpster is a unique, you know, and then you get into, do you get into backup generators? Do you get into, you know, refrigeration units, you know, all these things? I mean, I guess that falls under exposed machine
Yeah.
installations, I guess.
Right.
I just think it may be valuable just to add dumpsters because that's a common element that a lot of people have, but they may not realize that it has to be in a setback.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's a good idea. Do we want to create a definition for these special features? Or do you think this this language here is enough?
Well, how would you define special features?
I would take what it has right there and add dumpsters to it. So
But it may be, you know, I mean, and I don't like doing duplicate things, but, you know, when people look for things, they usually go to the definitions first before they purge all the way through a site plan ordinance, that's all.
Wouldn't a dumpster be covered in exposed storage areas? Keep it, you know, you keep it vague and it would cover more than dumpster.
that's how we've looked at it, yeah.
Yeah, that's a storage area. It's,
Yeah, for trash.
I think it's,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna list everything, you know, the list would continue on forever.
Yeah.
Because that would, you know, then somebody could argue, well, I have 7 garbage cans instead of a dumpster.
Instead of a
It's
dumpster.
Storage, it's a storage area,
That's a good point, yeah.
so.
Or, you know, maybe you put, you know, waste or something, waste storage or something like that, so, you know, but, I don't know. I mean, do you want somebody to have, I don't know, I just think dumpsters is a little more specific and beneficial because that's the most common one that people miss. But what about like gas tanks and things like that? We don't, is that not a special feature?
I think we've referred to it as a service area or a utility building if it's something that's in a structure.
Tanks, but I'm just thinking like because we had that come up there with that one too, was the propane
Propane
tank.
tanks, yeah.
So if we're trying to go in and just,
Above ground fuel tanks. What about language, Mr. Chairman, that, by way of example, and then it's not all inclusive, but it gives you some guidance.
That's a good idea. And doesn't limit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wayne, do storage tanks for fuel have fire requirements which would be spacing off of either property lines or other buildings, so
Yes,
maybe is there a section in the fire code that we would reference for that?
no.
I will look through that and see if there's something that would fit for you.
Because you get into both NFPA, and then you also get to propane, you get into the propane standards, and that's all based on the volume of fuel being stored.
Right.
From setback, because if it's over 1,000, you gotta be 25 feet, if it's 500, it's like 10 feet. So it gets to be kind of a variable thing, but, you know, I think you can put something in there exclusive of other fire or operating codes or something like that as well.
Yeah, or in conformance with fire code regulations, something like that.
Yeah, or utility codes or something to that effect.
Right. Mechanical, yeah.
Okay. So anything else on that one?
I don't think so.
Okay. So number 5, I'm gonna open up to you guys. That's shipping containers. So we haven't proposed any changes. That was the one that I thought would be best if you guys could take a look at it and see if we want to make any changes to shipping containers.
Well, I have a question on what happens if it's mounted permanently. Is it no longer a shipping container? Is it a structure?
Well, it's a shipping container if it meets the definition of a shipping container, which is on page 3 of number 5. A roofed or unroofed container placed outdoors and used for the storage of goods, materials, or merchandise, which is utilized in connection with a lawful principal or accessory use of the lot. The term shipping container includes but is not limited to containers such as boxcars, semi-trailers, roll-off containers, slide-off containers, railroad cars, and piggyback containers. And then the second part of that is a storage container. The term storage container does not include a garage, barn, or storage structure accessory to a principal use, provided such structure is not of a type designed, equipped, or customarily used for the over-the-road transport of goods, materials, or merchandise. Which I think is kind of what you're talking about, Kevin, which is if you're to take a shipping container, put it on a foundation, and make it more of a permanent structure, is it no longer a shipping container? I think the problem is, it was a structure that was used for over-the-road transport of goods, materials, or merchandise, or over the water, I guess, maybe in your case. But I think that it's not clear enough to really decide based on that definition. So maybe we need to further define it to say specifically.
Because a lot of people have structures built of them. So what if you stack 2 together or 3 together and make a structure? I don't see how you can call that a shipping container anymore.
Yeah, so I think that's what we need to try to find a way to put into words.
It would have to meet all the building code requirements.
Yeah,
Because it
would-
turns into a
The
building.
building, sure.
Right,
Sure,
right.
absolutely.
Look,
Yeah. When you buy these things, I've never bought a shipping container. Is it possible to get something certifying like loads and everything like that?
they are all certified for loads. Yeah, they're structurally certified. In the building codes, there's actually a section on shipping containers, how to properly mount them on the ground and everything else like that, so.
New ones would have that, but a lot of old ones I've used over the years in construction, they're, often rusted, or the floors are not as good as they used to be. So if it's an old one that's been in use and it was no longer usable for shipping, then they sell them to contractors to use on job sites. So I don't think those would be, certifiable unless there was an inspection performed on them.
What concern are we trying to address?
Well, so right now they're not allowed in a residential district, which is most of the town.
And we want them to be?
Some people do. Some people do.
Like a proposed use, and I would like to do that myself, is put my solar batteries and, inverters in there, which becomes a much safer place for them than inside my house where it is currently now, even though I met all the specs for that. And to expand that, I would have, much rather have a very good metal building, which these are, to house something like, you know, the solar batteries and inverters.
And Kevin's not the only one, just to be clear.
So we do,
There's other, yeah.
there's
Yeah.
at least one other
Yeah, it's not just,
besides Kevin?
yeah, not just
Okay.
Kevin, that's interested in that.
Well, isn't it the same as a shed? What happens if you
That's
build a
exactly what I
shed?
was just thinking. It's the
I
same
don't
thing as a
disagree.
shed, yeah.
I think it
This
is.
yeah, they're much more structurally sound than sheds.
Yeah.
No.
No,
No.
we're agreeing, no, you want to keep it going, Kevin. Like, no, we're saying it's the same thing. It's, you know, it's the same exact thing.
Shipping
It's a
container shed, it's the
a
same
shed.
thing.
It's a storage facility.
So I think the pushback from some people is they don't like to look at them. I think that may be why it was put in.
That is why it was put in.
Yeah, you would know probably better than the rest of us, because,
Oh, is this you?
well, you were on the comp plan committee in 2004, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
and
don't know
that's,
if it came from that.
well, it was roughly around then. I
Yeah.
think it was actually 2001 or 2.
No, yeah, there were
Maybe.
individuals that simply didn't like the looks of them.
So why don't we address screening them?
2004, actually.
Why don't
Well,
we address screening them like we would screen anything else? Like we screen the dumpsters?
that, to be honest, was kind of how I looked at it. If they're not visible from a property line or they're screened in some way, then I guess it really doesn't matter as long as it meets that certification to be used as a structure, you know, in that case, I
Yeah,
guess.
I mean, I
I
would
mean,
think,
yeah, that's interesting though, but if somebody builds a metal-sided wood,
Shed.
you know, shed or shop, which looks exactly like that
Yeah.
same siding,
Exactly.
how does
yeah,
that differ?
Right.
exactly. How does
So
it
I could
differ?
go out and buy that same material and put it on the side of a wooden or even a metal structure and have that same look.
Yep,
I just, you know, I understand that it should be a level of certification for structural soundness. There's no question about that. But as far as the looks of that metal siding, I mean, you walk, you know, you drive down 302 and you see a lot of commercial buildings that have that metal siding, that same siding.
I mean, I can see where a residential site neighbors wouldn't be happy having just a container with maybe no roof or flat roof. But if you modified it to look more like a shed, and if you screened it from view, then it starts to seem to me be less of an issue.
I don't even think you'd want an unroofed container. What would be the purpose of it? Wouldn't you just call that a pool?
See again?
An unroofed container would be a pool.
Well, maybe if you get enough rain, I suppose.
Hey, Alex, question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody approached you with the desire to make one of these shipping containers into a tiny house?
It has been brought up before, yeah.
So that makes it a little gray.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's becoming more and more popular.
Right. Right. I mean, is that something anyone's ever approached you to do?
Kevin, you have an ally on the board.
A few, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know I've had people ask the question. I've never had anyone propose anything. So, but I could see it happening for sure.
So I have a question. So I look at this as you've got container, the use of storage, ideally no different than somebody putting up a shed in their backyard, right? They put up a shed, ideally you put it on a foundation, but a lot of people don't, right? They go down to shed happens and they pull it out on the lawn and put it on crushed stone or something. Then the other question is if you have a container and you're looking for occupancy in it, that to me is a different story.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. Which then to me is a difficult thing because obviously it would have to comply with residential codes, right?
Yeah.
But it wouldn't satisfy the desire for people to not see them.
Yeah.
'Cause
Right.
it's still a shipping container, and that's sort of the retro thing of them. People like that, so.
So as far as the screening goes, how would that differ? A shipping container, roofed or unroofed container, be different than exposed storage area?
Yeah, it
and
wouldn't.
Special features.
Be the same.
It's the same thing. So we would, yeah.
Yeah.
We
I
treat it
agree.
the same, it's an exposed storage area,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's,
That may be the way to address it in the short term, but to Kevin's point, I've actually done a design with one of these out on an island. And, you know, with a little modification, they can be somewhat attractive, but I still think you got the twofold question here with containers. You've got the occupancy and you've got the storage.
sure.
Yeah.
From your standpoint of the storage, I agree with you, maybe this falls under special features, but what do we do with the occupied container, or somebody wants to actually use it for a garage, or, you know, or for, you know, service building or something?
Right, or workshop, I mean, I've seen people that have use them for workshops.
So
So I
Kevin,
think somehow we do have to I think we do have to segregate the two.
so it looks like the shipping container stuff was brought into the 2021. Wayne, can you mute please? For some reason it just comes through you, Wayne. I don't know why. Thank you. It looks like, so shipping containers were brought into the 2021 ICC building codes. So we're on 2015. I think in order to do this, we probably would want to adopt that section from the 2021 code, since it wouldn't apply to us right now, since we're
And that addresses foundations and all the other items I think we'd be concerned with for storage and non-living areas.
Yeah, I think I probably would want to spend a little bit of time looking through that just to get to know that section a little bit better. And then maybe Jim and I can work on putting something together before the next meeting on that, on maybe how we could make that work. I don't know. Are you guys thinking you're all in favor of seeing it be more friendly?
Relaxed.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only concern I have is how it would look.
Yeah. The screening of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm not quite sure how to address that. I mean,
Yeah.
do you just
But
put
if
a,
well, one thing would be, Mike, would be if it falls under special features for storage, it would have to meet the minimal setback. So, you know, in most zones, you're talking 20, 30 feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but I can see where there'd be, like in a subdivision, a lot of properties which wouldn't have much blockage for 20 or 30 feet, i.e. just old trees that don't, you
Or
know,
no trees.
or no trees,
On
yeah.
Field.
Yeah.
Then they need to plant their own trees.
Yeah.
And then again, then the question would be, then at what point, and I guess goes back to any accessory structure, at what point you can't have more, right, under accessory structures, it can't be greater than the main principal use. So you can't have 10 storage units out there, you would dwarf the size of your area for your home, right? So there is a little bit of a cap on how many you could do out there.
Okay.
Any other thoughts? Last thoughts on shipping containers? No? All right.
Do you want to cap the amount of area that somebody could put? I mean,
Would it fall under the 700
Yeah.
requirement that auxiliary structures have? That would be 4 typical storage containers.
well, that would be that's for accessory apartment. That's not necessarily for accessory structure.
Well, there's a section in here.
That too.
Yeah, under 9.22B for non-residential zoning districts, so industrial and commercial. The total floor area of all shipping containers on a lot shall not exceed 700 square feet. So that's in the non-residential side. If it's 700 in non-residential, I would think we probably would want to carry that over.
What size is a normal, how many square feet?
Yeah,
is a
just-
normal-
Well, that's like 2 containers, you know, if you get a container that's 40 by, 8, that's 320 square feet.
40 footers are big. That's kind of usual. Most of the ones you see everywhere are 20 footers. That's all I've ever used, except for rare occasion. But still, 420 footers is quite a lot of space. I hate to look at it.
Yeah, especially the residential section.
Well, I think one of the things, and I think the reason why Kevin might be bringing that up is he's planning on stacking. which that would be floor area. So if you stack two, it's double because you have two floors. So footprint would just be, you know, wouldn't matter if it's two or three, then it would just be the footprint, but floor area, you do each floor, so.
Yeah, the idea is to build a slanted array for solar panels. Instead of building a native structure, a stick-built structure, you stack two of them and have one beside it. You have yourself a 45-degree, or, you know, big surface to put solar panels on. Then that would hide the, you know, the actual storage units, but it provides an almost instant way to create a structure. And plus you end up with a lot of storage and a place to put your batteries and inverters.
Would you access the top one, or is it just empty?
Yeah, no, that's where I put the batteries and inverters in the
Oh.
top one. In case of a fire or something, you'd limit it to the, you know, the top area, with the least amount of structural damage. But I think that would be easily, just you'd put a staircase up to the top area.
Do you think it would make sense for storage purposes, we limit it to maybe one per residence, but for structural, accessory structure purposes, getting back to that occupancy thing, you know, we could allow more? I mean, I just worry in some, like, take the village district or something, you know, everybody starts putting a container in there, it's gonna look pretty ugly after a while if everybody starts putting one in their front yard.
But you'd have a hard time with setbacks there.
Possibly, but I mean,
Ask, is this the, my printer wasn't working. Is this proposed, I see. To exceed.
All right, so what do we, what's our decisions? Whether or not they need to be screened, I think is yes, right?
Yep, I
How
think,
many of them square footage we want to limit? Footprint? Is that,
yeah, I think
Yeah.
it might be footprint, might be the correct way to go, but then, you know, if somebody's gonna use it for utilitarian purposes like Kevin, you know, and whether it's utilitarian or occupancy, I still think there should be a separate, you know, clause.
so if Kevin stacks them, does he have to screen them? The answer would be yes, right? Under our, if we approve,
Unless we do something where it's utilitarian and you could come up with some other, you know, requirement to make them, I don't know, I mean, if you get a red one, a yellow one, and a green one, you know, is there gonna be a stop light up there?
Yeah.
I don't know, you know, I mean, you can get into aesthetics, and I don't know where we lose our function here.
Put T111 on them.
I'm confused. Alex, maybe you can, I'm looking at proposed amendments under 300-9.22, number 2. It seems to limit for a period not to exceed 6 months on second, third line.
And it says a single shipping container.
And it does
Yes.
limit it to a single shipping container.
yes, so,
Good catch.
you can do a temporary shipping container currently. That's if someone is, you know, if you're moving, building a house, you have to do temporary storage or something if you have a fire or flood. We do allow a temporary shipping container.
Well, so we currently do.
Yes, but it's only for 6 months or however long necessary. It can't be left there
All right,
as a
so what we're
permanent
toying
structure.
with now is something different.
Yeah, allowing them more permanently.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so go ahead, Jim.
I was just gonna ask Kevin, with yours, are you putting them on a foundation?
Yeah, that would be on a slab, a 12-inch slab, structurally sound slab, so that they would be very stable, because I have to meet the wind. I mean, you put up, we're talking, I don't know if you've seen my solar array, which is 36 panels. We're talking about putting 3 times that many panels on the structure that I would build with those. So it would be another almost 100, actually over a little 100 panels. And then inside, we would put enough batteries. What we're trying to get is off the grid, basically. Our, the price of electricity, as you all know, is amazing, but ours is just, all the computers we have in the house and the kids, and they haven't left yet.
So Kevin, can I ask you, you've probably put a lot of thought into this, so do you have any ideas how the board could somehow regulate how these would look, i.e. like Jim's concern about like stacking different colored containers? I mean, how could the board address how it looks?
Well, I mean, I agree if you want to have the aesthetics in it. In my case, you wouldn't see them because they're going to be behind an array of solar panels. So they would be completely hidden from the road. And I don't know how you'd address other ones, like you said, or I think somebody mentioned that you could put a roof on them, and you could paint them, you can actually get murals that big stickers you can put on these things. I mean, there's many ways you can hide the intention of what they look. But I've got a red barn down there which has siding that looks similar to the container siding. So, the only difference is it's got a gable roof on it, a gambrel roof on it. So it's really hard to say whose aesthetics you're serving in this case. Like somebody else was saying, it's a kind of a retro look to be using these type of things now. But is that something that Raymond wants to have? So I think it's up to a bunch of people to come in and talk about that, not just maybe the few of us that want to decide how these things should look. And I think that's what the comprehensive plan is trying to do. But I guess for now we could address it as saying, you have to hide it somehow, camouflage it, plant a lot of trees in front of it, make it look like some other building. But I don't know how else we could move forward.
Yeah, I think we do need to have something in there, probably that some language that describes how the owner would screen these from public view. The other thing too, I was thinking is that where we have cluster or open space subdivisions, we may want to, I won't say ban them, but we may not want to restrict them in those because they are smaller lots. So just thought.
If they meet the setbacks.
Yeah.
They meet
Yeah, I mean, in those subdivisions though, you allow sheds.
Right.
I think right.
And somebody could build a shed the exact same size as a container, right?
Dangerous.
And they could put siding on it that looks like a container. There's nothing, I mean, what are the rules against making your house look ugly?
There are plenty of them around.
Well, they say what fences make good neighbors or something to that effect.
All
I
right,
mean,
so
that's one of the issues I have is how can we tell people what to make their places look like? And now we're in like a gated community that only allows, white houses and picket fences. And at what level do we start telling people how they can look?
Maybe we just
Totally
simplify
agree.
it. I get what you're saying, and I agree with you. Everybody can make their home look ugly as they want. I think the thing is that somehow, maybe the simplest thing to be, if you want to make it an accessory structure, to your point, Kevin, it's got to be put on a foundation, and anything else is a storage container.
Yeah, I believe in the structural and the fire and all the ordinances we have around safety. I'm a #1 backer of all of those things. I just don't know how far we tread on people's, freedom to let something look the way they want it to look.
sounds like you've been hanging out with Greg.
Yeah, that's,
I like that.
Greg's got the pom-poms going.
yeah,
You're finally getting through to them, Greg.
dangerous.
A little common sense, huh?
All right, so we can take that, and Jim and I will kind of work together on coming up with something for the next meeting, and we'll see how it goes. All right, number 6 is going to be the zoning map, which I don't have yet, so we can skip over that for now. And that's just correcting an error that's been on the zoning map since 2014. Number 7 is another mandatory update to the shoreland zone. This one doesn't come from the DEP order, but it is now state law that applications within the shoreland zone must include pre-construction photographs and post-construction photographs.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, so we'll add that in.
So where's this coming from? Is this from,
They put it.
shoreline zoning? Where's it coming from?
They put it in a statute somewhere. I don't know which one exactly. Somewhere.
I don't know why they just didn't put it in shoreline zoning. Since they put it
Yeah,
shore-
I don't know. It's in 439A, which I don't know off the top of my head what that is, but I think it. I don't know. I can't remember. I think it might be something to do with NERPA. I'm not sure.
I agree with it. Makes good sense.
Yeah, I think it's been in there for a couple of years. We just haven't picked up on it. Number 8. This was the one about notifications to all lot owners within a subdivision instead of just lot owners within 250 feet.
Aren't both of these the same, or almost the same? Article 6?
6 and
Article
7.
7, yeah. Can we combine it somehow?
6 is for, I believe, a major subdivision.
It doesn't have the word major in there at all.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing. So 6, I believe, is the section for
Yep.
major, and 7 is for minor. So maybe we need to add major in there.
Just add major in front of that first sentence, really.
They're both
What'd you admit? Yeah,
essentially the same.
leave it as major and minor.
Well,
Get
I
rid of
think
one
for
article.
Alex's point, we got two separate.
They're
pieces
separate
in-
sections in the
Section.
ordinance.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
So you have to keep,
So there's a section for major subdivisions,
right.
section for minor.
so instead
There
of
could
final
just-
subdivision, it just should say major.
Major,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. It's just updating that. All right, number 9. Number 9, another fun one. Accessory apartments. So Phil, the town's attorney, has been very involved in this LD 2003 accessory dwelling unit law. And when we spoke last year, 6 months ago or so, it was, I wouldn't worry too much about it yet. I don't think it's going to require too much from the town as far as amendments go in the ordinance. So I spoke to him after the last meeting, and he says, well, let's take a look at the ordinance, and maybe we need to update it to get in line with. This is supposed to go into effect in July 1st. So the proposed amendment comes directly from him. It doesn't really change much. He adds a minimum of 190 square feet. And all these changes are just to put us in line with 4364B. So that minimum size, no additional parking is required for the dwelling unit in the parking requirements. Obviously, we changed the name. It's now no longer an accessory apartment. It's now an accessory dwelling unit to match up. In the definition, I believe, yeah, he removes the 700 square foot limitation. And that's because it's in the actual standard itself. And he felt it was not necessary in the definition.
Well, it is in here.
Yes, yeah, which is why he
Well, took it
felt
out on
it
the
was
next
not, yeah, it wasn't
definition.
necessary.
Okay.
Because one of the things he said is sometimes what will happen over time is the town will fix it, they'll increase it to 800, for example, and forget to do it in the definition. So he said anytime you have a specific standard like that, it's always best to leave it in the standard and not in the definition. So that you don't have it in multiple spots.
So you could exceed the design septic system by 1 bedroom if you have an accessory apartment?
Outside of the shoreline zone, yeah. Yeah.
What was the logic for that? Just make it easier?
Yeah. Yeah, less expensive. So you don't actually have to install that system. You can go one above.
So not to get Kevin all excited here again, but is this where tiny homes kind of fits in?
It can, if it meets right now, it has to meet building code, and we haven't adopted the tiny home appendix, so it has to meet just regular IRC 2015. We haven't had anyone try. I had one person start to design one last year, and they started and realized it was too much of a headache, and they just they designed a small house. And I think it was probably like 600 square feet or something.
And I know there's been talk about, at least in urban areas, about, going back to the containers, is trying to use those as,
Yeah.
Tiny home type accessory dwellings.
Yeah, I
think
mean, that's
somewhere- I've
that's
seen
like
that
what you were
around the
talking
country,
about.
People are manufacturing remanufacturing those, containers as not just tiny homes, but offices and, all sorts of different, my question was on the accessory dwelling, when does it become an accessory dwelling? When there's another family? And what legally, so if
Yep.
somebody builds on some more, or puts another kitchens, it wants to have two kitchens in their dwelling. Is that?
Yeah. No, so someone can have 2 kitchens in a house. We get this question all the time because
Yeah.
people are always trying to work around it. So the language is the accessory dwelling unit shall contain a kitchen and bathroom which are separate from and not used in common with the principal dwelling unit. So if someone wants to put a second kitchen in their basement, and then they also want to have they want to close it off so that that kitchen has its own door from the outside, and then there's also a bedroom off of it, and then they put a bathroom there. If you can kind of create your own unit that's accessed directly from the outside, it's pretty easy to say that's going to be an apartment. But if you've got a kitchen that, is more inclusive with the regular house, that doesn't have a bedroom right next to it, maybe there's a bedroom down a hall, but you still have to go through a main hallway that's connected with the house and the living room. I think you could argue that it's not its own unit. And really what we tell people is you just have to kind of make that case to us. Show us that it's not going to be its own unit. Most of the time it's its own unit. I mean, they're just trying to create some rental income.
Right, what if, that's what I'm trying to get at, is what if you just expand your house? Let's say you had a garage that was attached to your house, and you expanded your house and you wanted to put all those things in that garage, but the same number of people were still living there. The same people were still living there. Does that become an accessory dwelling unit?
Probably not. Probably not, but it's impossible for us to know who's living where.
Because
The question.
I know, but you look at some of these mansions down on Sebago,
Yep.
and they have like 3 or 4 accessory dwelling units, if you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of them have enough land and frontage to do that. There are quite a few larger lots that, because in the shoreland you need twice the shore frontage, twice
Right.
the road frontage, twice the land area. Some of them can do it, not all of them, but some of them. It's kind of funny, the second kitchen thing, you actually see quite a bit more on the Cape with some of these larger homes, because they'll often put a kitchen outside, they put a kitchen in the living portion of the house, and then they might have a service kitchen, or they might have kind of like a little bar area, entertaining area where there's a kitchen. So there's often multiple kitchens, but it's not as easy to say, oh, they're putting that kitchen there to create a separate dwelling unit. It's pretty clear that it's just for another use. But most of the time, if they're going to build a house and then put an addition on that has a wall between the regular portion of the house and then this new area with a door to the outside, a lot of times it's easy to say that's an apartment if it's not even connected with a door, an interior door. Sometimes.
Well, if they were to rent it, but what if there was just the same people? My point is, again, this is sort of a freedom of use act to me. That if you build something and you want to expand it, you can, as long as you're meeting all the requirements of not, building requirements and everything, and not making it too big for your lot and everything, if a person wants to build just about anything they want to build, they could have 15 kitchens, and as long as the septic system met the needs, and they could have, you know, to me, it becomes an accessory dwelling unit when you have multiple families or you're renting it.
Yeah, and we don't know. That's the thing. We don't know. And that question comes up all the time is, you know, if it's just going to be for my mother-in-law, we're not going to rent it. Can we just do it? Can we just, you know, we don't have enough space to do it. But if it's just going to be for our mother-in-law, and it's kind of like it is for her now, but when you guys sell and you move out, who's going to move in? And is it going to be 2 units at that point? And we have no way, we're not going to check birth certificates, you know, so we can't track who's using what. It has to be based on what that plan looks like.
When people want to rent an apartment, does Raymond have a housing code inspector who would go and check it before it got?
Nope. So we don't have a housing code or short-term rental ordinance or rental.
Because that would be a way to keep track of it if
Yeah.
you were doing that, but
Yeah.
it's only in a big city.
There's been there's been a big push to see Raymond do something. The select board, I think most recently, they said they're going to wait for the state to kind of chime in with some standards on that. And I don't know if Mike, if you know, the state was, I guess, talking about coming up with some, I know the Hospitality Association or something was all for the state adopting some rules to kind of push back on the Airbnb stuff. But I don't know where that's at.
So I know that the part of the new legislator was just signed in. And in their next session, they're gonna be bringing that up.
Okay.
And I was actually just recently told that they are gonna be focusing on that. They're gonna divide up into two groups, and one of them is to focus on that, so.
Yeah, so
it'll-
that's
it'll be
coming. Yeah, it's coming.
Yep.
So, Alex, one question I had with this from the language you got from Phil is, why can't we discuss parking? Because I get in urban areas, you have on-street parking, you know, but in the rural areas, people aren't using public transportation, most of them have a car. This is where I have some concern, because we don't want cars parked in lawns and everything else, so how do we at least make sure that there's some provisions for parking?
I honestly don't know. I'm not sure. Him and I did not discuss the parking thing. That was something that was slid in there. I would assume there is something in that 4364B, which says that the municipality can't require more parking. I'm just kind of scanning it real quick. I can ask him about that.
Yeah, you know, I mean, if it's a long driveway, I don't have a care, but I mean, sometimes these are, you know, short up against the street, and you barely have enough to
Remember
have
when we
enough for the
put
residents to
accessory-
park in, let alone,
Accessory,
accessory
what are we
unit.
calling it? Accessory dwelling units into the ordinances.
Okay, so it does come right from the
It
statute.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It says
2004,
something like that,
somewhere
yeah,
was around the shipping container.
even before that, probably, I
May
think.
have been.
So,
It was quite a while ago.
if memory serves me correctly, and recently it hasn't done that very well, but I think that this whole accessory dwelling unit came about because we wanted to move, like you were just talking about, the mother-in-law apartment out of the house and give
Yep.
give another alternative to that. So, and Greg and I were just talking, it's pre-04, maybe even before that it was done. And
Oh, really?
yeah, so looking back, I'm wondering now, was it a good thing to do? And do we just want to go back to the way it was before and not do this? And I only bring this up because I know that there are a number of these accessory units that have certainly eaten up more or put down more impervious surface than would have had in any other, if it was still the apartment linked to the house complex. Does create the parking problem that would not have been there. Does have some of the issues with what happens when the house is sold. Now it almost certainly becomes a rental unit I mean, I don't see how it could not become a rental unit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we looked at that at the time. I don't remember.
Well, the other reason that was brought about is because there were so many people that just went and made these mother-in-law apartments.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what Jack Cooper said.
Yeah.
And he said, they're already there, now how are we gonna address it? And they addressed it by adding the mother-in-law apartment
Mm-hmm.
in an ordinance.
Right.
But I-
And then from there, we went to accessory dwellings.
Which,
Yeah.
Yeah, but-
so, so the difference is when you have a mother-in-law apartment, it's limited to who it could be occupied by?
Well, it's
It has to be
attached to the
relative.
house. It has to be attached to the house. Yeah. Well, but I mean, you can't really limit it to who you're going to,
Right.
right?
That's difficult.
But the fact that it doesn't really as readily become a rental unit if it's in the house,
Oh,
if it's in the main house.
so the accessory apartment we're considering now doesn't have to be connected to the house?
No, it's a 700-foot building separate.
Ah,
And
that's different.
yeah, I don't think we, I mean, I was all for it at the time, actually, but I don't know if we actually could see down the road the problems that came about by doing it. And I don't know if any problems have come about by doing it, but it seems like we do have some problems that are developed. And I
But
don't
I
know if
think-
those better or worse.
It
Bob, I
seems like,
think the other, sorry.
Go ahead, Jim.
go ahead, Jim.
I think the other thing that came out of this was this is also a way, I think the state legislature saw as a way to combat affordable housing. You know, I think this has been another component of this
In the first.
accessory dwelling unit is, you know, to make more housing available for those with less income.
Mm-hmm.
And we
It's-
really don't have, as we've talked about in the past, we really don't have a well-defined affordable housing plan in Raymond. But sometimes these rural areas are difficult because of their lack of, as I said, public transportation, available resources, so on and so on.
It seems to me if we have a separate dwelling unit essentially, we're certainly creating the potential for a need for parking, I would think.
I would think.
So that comes directly from this new law.
Right.
It actually says that we can't require additional
Right.
parking.
So then I guess that goes back to the
Yeah.
point, maybe we keep it within or attached to the current dwelling
Kind of
unit.
drawing.
I'm not sure that we can even do that, to
Yeah,
be
doesn't
honest.
the state
We do
require,
this, the state-
is it
yes,
allowable?
Yeah.
Yep.
It says that it can be within an existing, attached to, sharing a wall, or a
Government.
separate structure.
Well, that is the state law now?
That's that new
Oh, we'll have to share
4364.
that.
Okay.
There we go.
Settled.
What are you talking about for? All right, sounds good.
So they're kind of forcing your hand.
Yeah, it's done.
So the only thing that they're not making you guys do is allow it in the shoreland zone. So in the shoreland, you still need twice the lot area, twice the shore frontage, twice the road frontage. We have a little bit of flexibility there if you guys wanted to explore it, but it's not required by that LD 2003. And that would be, we currently require much more land per lot than the state minimum for shoreland zoning. So you always could possibly do, like right now in LR1, you need 2 acres. You could do something like, you know, you need to have at least 2 acres plus 40,000 for the apartment, or some 40,000 square feet for the apartment, making it basically 3 acres, or 4 acres in LR2. But I mean, that's definitely going to increase some development in the shoreland in areas of town that can't currently be developed.
Mhm.
So,
Can we prohibit them in the shoreline zoning or no?
no.
But I think to Bob's point, the points that he made about the impacts that these have, to me, that's where the rubber's gonna hit the road in the shoreline zoning. I feel that we do need the bigger area if we're gonna allow them in the shoreline zoning.
Yeah, I did reach out to the state for an opinion on that, and they had no problem with us doing something like that if that's what you guys wanted to explore, which would be minimum lot size for the principal dwelling,
Plus.
and then 40,000 for the,
That makes sense.
but you would still need to have twice the shore frontage, twice the road frontage.
Mhm.
It's just an increase in, I'm pretty sure. I'd have to look back on the email, but I'm pretty sure that's what they were saying.
Okay.
Because
Let's face it, if we allow them to go in like we do in the other zones, when the shoreline zone is gonna be the first area that gets these rental units
Yes.
because of the popularity on the water.
Yep.
yeah.
And we're doing nothing for septics and we're doing nothing for parking, and that's the two things we're gonna run up against impacting the lakefronts.
Wow.
So I don't know,
That is interesting that we're not really protecting the waterfront and not engineering additional septic.
well, to do an apartment, you have to have the septic capacity to do that. So if someone currently has a 4-acre lot in LR1, which is a 2-acre minimum, say they have 4 acres, they have twice the shore frontage requirement, which I think is 225, and twice the road frontage, which I think is also 225. Let's say they have twice everything, they could now put, currently, today, they could put a 700 square foot accessory dwelling unit on the lot. But they need to make sure that they have a septic system that can handle that additional 2 bedrooms. Has to be designed to 2 bedrooms.
But if you just do 1 bedroom, you don't have to do anything, right?
Yeah.
No, you still have to do it in the shoreland. You'd have to you have to actually design and install a system in the shoreland to meet that capacity, and you can't just do 1 bedroom for a separate unit, it's gotta be 2. And we require 120 gallons per day in the shoreland, or within 200 feet at least. So they'd have to do a larger system. So there's definitely, we would make sure that anything we've got out there for dwelling units, they should have adequate septic capacity. Now, they set it up as a 2-bedroom, and then they rent that on Airbnb, and they've got 16 people there for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That we can't currently control for now, but we'll see what the state does.
That's interesting also, because you think, the state is attempting to create additional housing, but there's no way to stop the scenario you just said, of having additional housing, and maybe that's great, but then maybe they'd Airbnb it and have 1 million people in there.
No, not only that, but if you have that Airbnb, it's not gonna be affordable housing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know. Do you think we leave it for now? What do you guys think? As
I think in
proposed?
the shoreline zoning, we should have that provision in there for the lot area myself.
I agree, Jim.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on what Phil's proposed to get us in line with the July 1st law change?
Alex, just a clerical thing, and I know this is still in the works, but it seems to me like there might be 2 different definitions
Let's take a
for
look.
accessory dwelling unit. One on the top of page 2, and one on the top of page 5. And they're similar, but a little bit different. The one on page 5 references the bathroom, which seems to be an important piece of the puzzle, so.
Yeah, so that 358.2 is the definition for the shoreland zone, and then 312.2 is the definition for the land use ordinance. So I would have to look and see what the difference is. I would think we would want those to match.
Mm-hmm.
So I can look at that and make sure that they're the same.
And then on the first page, the large paragraph, I know there's an effort to make sure it's called an accessory dwelling unit, not an apartment. And 2/3 of the way down, it's still referred to as an apartment, so
Okay.
just a clerical thing. But
Yes, the accessory apartment may be a minimum of not 190. Is that where you're seeing it?
yeah,
Yep. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Good. Yep. I'll make sure that one's changed. Anything else? For the table here, the shoreland table, are you guys okay with me just keeping it 16A for the amendment process. I do it in some of the other ones and not including the entire table. If we're just changing 16A, can I just put 16A?
Oh,
You
yeah.
guys want to see
Yeah.
the whole thing?
No,
Okay.
that's fine.
Because technically we're amending the table, so I've been putting the whole table, but it's really unnecessary
Right.
to include all the others.
Yeah, for one word.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
it's Confusion.
Yeah, it's just, I think the more text you throw at people, the more,
Yep, more questions?
confused. So you'll see on 10, actually, that's exactly what I did. I just included 3 and 4 on the table.
Okay.
So I'll do the same thing on that other one. So this is another one that is mandatory from DEP. They caught it this year when they were looking through our ordinance. We are currently in option, I think it's option 1 is what we are with the state for timber harvesting. What that means is we don't do any timber harvesting enforcement or permitting or anything. They do it all for us. So it's one of those weird situations where the state actually is doing something for the town. But they like to threaten removing that from the town
No, I do not.
frequently. Yeah, I know. So the threat this time around is if you don't delete this section from your ordinance, you're no longer going to be an option 1 town. You're going to have to do your own timber harvesting. So this is just removing all of the timber harvesting language and definitions so that we can continue to get the benefits of the Maine Forestry Service.
It took
Or
us a
else-
while to do. Report.
Yeah, well, we made a mistake. Our planner did, actually.
Yeah, I mean, this came out years
5
ago.
Versus 100-foot distance from the stream.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be 75 for the state to enforce, and we put 100 in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, this came out a while
It
ago.
made things real complicated.
We switched to option 1, I think, in like 2015 or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's been in there, just sitting. So they were like,
Yeah, there are towns that have it just like we do. They got the whole ordinance in it. It's the same as what the state enforces.
So do you run into towns that are not an option 1 town that you have to
Yep.
actually go? Really?
Yep. Durham,
Do they have a forester, town forester?
no,
Who does the,
the code enforcement.
So, I mean, yeah.
I think, doesn't Gorham do it?
I'm not sure about Gorham. Enforce it, they
I
may.
think they do.
I must make it more challenging for you guys to have to deal with.
Yeah, that's what we wanted was consistency
Yeah.
between towns and,
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
uh,
Yeah, so that's all this changes. It's just to pull that out. Yeah, I think that's it for now. There may be, I think, one other one that the state wanted us to make, but I can't remember what it was. I'll have to look through.
so Alex, what's our timeline for this?
I'd like to bring back changes from tonight to the next meeting and then maybe do a public hearing in February, which is, I think, a month ahead of where we try to normally be. February is kind of like our absolute end date. Or March is our absolute
Right.
end date.
So we're shooting February public hearing.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've always used February because in the event that we get a snow cancellation or something in the winter, it gives us that buffer.
Yep. Sounds
Cool.
good. Okay, Alex, you got a couple other things that you wanted to mention tonight?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know, well, we received just one sketch plan application for next month. So we'll have that and follow up on all this ordinance stuff. The marina didn't submit anything for January. You may remember the issue we ran into last time was they were proposing to clear way more than they could.
Yeah.
So I spent some time with Rob McSorley after the meeting looking at that. And the pipeline runs through their lot. And the pipeline is cleared, so there's no trees, and they have to keep it cleared. So his question was, currently they are being hit for all that cleared area. It's counted towards their total cleared opening on the lot. And he was wondering, can we subtract that pipeline area from what we have for the total, which would allow them to open up a little bit more where they want to actually clear. And I said, well, let me go to the state and ask because, with the way things usually go with this Indian Point and the marina. I want to make sure that you guys are definitely crossing every T and dotting every I. So I went to the state, and I went to Jeff Kalinich, who's the shoreline zoning coordinator for Southern Maine. He went to the AG's office, they weighed in, and they said that they do not need to count that area since it's controlled by the utility and they don't even have the ability to let trees grow back. They would not require them to be penalized for that. So that's a big win for them. It's going to let them, they won't be able to clear as much as they proposed, but now they're a little bit closer. So that was a couple of weeks ago. I kind of expected him to bring something back, but maybe he's still working on that. So that's probably going to be February. The other one is the Raymond Hills. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Raymond Hills subdivision has started. They've put the logging access road in, and they've done all of the tree removal up there down the road near the down at Webb's Mills. So that project's underway. The subdivision that you guys had approved last year off Patricia still hasn't done anything. And Jim, do you know, is it, they have to start within 2 years?
I think we updated that to match with the DP, so I think they have longer period. Give me a second, continue on.
Yeah, so last I heard, the applicant who got that approved was trying to sell it. I saw it was listed online, and we had a couple people call us to ask some questions because they were interested, but that one, I don't see anything happening anytime soon. But the Raymond Hills, what is it, 25 units or whatever, that one's underway, and I would expect, they did all the tree stuff. I would think they're going to start site work pretty quick here, because I think he wanted to have that going through the winter.
So they reached an agreement on where the road/driveway would cut in, and
Yeah, I haven't. I did hear from one of the neighbors who was surprised to see that they basically cleared all the way to the property lines. Which I looked at the plan, and they did show clearing up to a few of the property lines, not all of them. But I think they went in and pretty much cleared everything in that top area where the development's going to be. So I haven't been up there. I'm probably going to take a ride up eventually here in the next couple of weeks, but so we'll see.
Alex, have you heard anything from Sterretts, how they're doing on creating a plan that can be reviewed?
I have not. The only thing I've heard was from, Bob on the comment that they didn't think Mainland Development would be able to do anything until middle of January. I'm actually going to try and call her tomorrow because I have some concerns about that. And I mean, they've missed the January meeting, but I would really like to see them come in for February. And if they aren't going to start until middle of January, there's obviously no
There's no
chance
way.
because they'll miss the deadline before they even start.
Gotcha.
So I do plan on reaching out to her.
Great.
Yeah.
I have a question about their site. They have multiple temporary buildings. What do we call those? Is there a definition of those?
There is.
What do we consider those?
They are a structure.
So if they had stick-framed buildings, they would be
Yep.
held to the same?
Yeah, a carport is, as far as the definition of a structure goes, they are the same.
Okay, so they have a lot of structures out
They
there.
have a lot of structures. Yeah, I mean, there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down there, last I saw. So yeah, they're all considered a structure, non-residential structure.
So to your question about the expiration, Alex, it's 2 years, 4 years to complete unless they request up front, and then they can also ask for a one-time extension for an additional 2 years.
Okay. So we must be pretty close to the anniversary of that. I think it was November last year. Maybe earlier. The fall.
I don't know. They took so long.
Yeah, I know.
We actually,
Felt like it was 2 years to get it approved.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll watch that and see. So if they go in and prep it, although there's not really any trees down there, so. And if they went in and did the site work, that would be a start. So as long as they did that, that would keep things alive. But otherwise, if they miss that 2 year, then I think they have to come back. So we'll watch that one. Valley View expires in July. Or whatever it's
Yeah,
called.
and we have specifically in there, commencement of
Yeah.
construction shall be defined to include, but not limited to, any land, site, or vegetation clearing, site disturbance, stockpiling, or excavation of soil, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's
So
the
clearing
sole
counts as
discretion of the
start
code enforcement officer.
Yeah, we did that for the one on Valley Road. We told them that because they went in and cleared the trees and did some site work up there years ago, we considered that a start.
They've
Now
already
we're gonna
asked
have
for
the
extension, right?
completion coming up on.
Yeah, the completion, they have to complete it by July, so. That one,
Didn't
I
they just
think.
come in, no, but didn't they just come in,
Last year.
for an extension?
But it was only for like a year, I think.
Oh, okay.
If I remember correctly, I'll have to dig
I
that
think it
up.
was.
I think it was just a year.
Yeah.
And also, I think Wayne and I had a conversation, nothing's happened with those 2 solar farms that we've recently approved.
Someone came in the office last week, doing an inspection of the Dens Drive, solar project. I don't know who she was with, but I know she asked to see the file. But that's it.
With that one and the Raymond Hills Village, do we have, Raymond Hills Village, didn't we request a third-party review?
Yes.
Okay. Now, are you getting reports on that?
Nope.
Right.
That's on my,
Is Chris Baldwin doing that?
I'm
one?
pretty sure, yeah. I gotta reach
I
out
had
to
a
them and see.
conversation with him about some other things, and I just said, we'd like to have those reports from the town. if you're-
Well, I thought about the other day when someone called asking about the trees.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just wondering, with that big solar farm, we probably ought to have something similar in nature, because that is a pretty big earthwork project.
Which one, Jim?
The one on Dens Drive?
Oh, okay.
which we would probably want to check. The site plan expiration is that a year to start and 2 years to finish?
No, site and subdivision were made the same.
They are the same? Okay. Because that's been about a year too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All
And I
right.
think that one has a DEP, so I think they're required to have some kind of third party, most likely under their DEP provision.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I got.
I have a couple of questions about the notes from the ZBA.
Yeah.
I want to wrap my head around the time of this, because I was reading it and the dates just don't match up.
Okay.
Just trying to figure out, this meeting was held December 29th, 20.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says the approval would be under the conditions that Starrett's follow through with the conditions for 1 full continuous year.
Mm-hmm.
If the conditions are not met, the conditional use permit would be voided. One conditional year from this meeting would have been December 29th, 21.
Yep.
So was there an extension? Because now we're going into 2 years.
So the conditional use only expires if they don't continue work there for a year.
So that's what it meant by the clock stopped when you said that?
Yeah.
So, okay. I was just confused by that.
So there's been some question
Okay.
about what continued use is.
Right.
And so we got an opinion from legal that because they've continued to work over there, the conditional use hasn't expired.
Okay.
Now, they
The-
probably should have worded it differently.
Yeah,
Well-
exactly. It doesn't protect the neighbors at all. I
It-
mean,
No.
from their perspective.
But the zoning board of appeals, from the video, the zoning board of appeals was concerned that the conditional use would transfer with the property. And they did not want that to happen. So that's why they put the 1 year in.
Okay.
So if he were to move, that
So people that moved in would not be able to
continue that.
continue.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think an attorney could easily argue the other way because it's just, it
Mhm.
wasn't very well worded.
I'm just purely on the time, because we're into 2 years now.
Yeah.
It was 20, 21, 22, going into 23.
Yeah.
It would have been,
But I think a number of the abutters are interpreting it your way.
Yeah.
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 It's just, yeah, that's all.
Which I could totally see, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
It makes sense.
It just, yeah, you can go either way. It just seems like there's nothing, they didn't begin the process.
It really should have said that they should have obtained site plan
Within a
approval
year.
within a year.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
That's
Yep.
totally what it should have said. Yeah.
Yep.
You know, and unfortunately, it
7
doesn't
years
say
ago,
that.
too.
Yeah.
But, you know, on that same token, I think in reading that the time has elapsed that they can go back to the ZBA and challenge the decision
Yes.
if they choose to do so now, which
Yes.
would seem to me what most of their concerns are is where they should go,
Yes.
not to us.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, the appeals period for that conditional use has expired. And they did request a reconsideration of that appeal originally.
Yeah, but
Within the 45 days, but
Within the 10 days to reconsider.
They couldn't get a quorum with the ZBA.
They couldn't get a quorum, yeah,
Yes,
they only
so
had
they
2
just-
members, yeah.
Yeah.
So they didn't hear that,
they could go back again now.
they can't.
I thought it read 1 year from, after 1 year has lapses, you can
Oh,
go back.
you can go back to request an appeal of similar nature,
Yes.
but that would be for Starrett to go back and request another conditional use.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I misunderstood.
So if he got denied, he has to wait a year to go back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have one question. With that approval from the ZBA, was there a limitation on the area that they could work in, or was it just
No,
wide open?
anywhere on the parcel.
Whatever meets the planning board site
Yes.
plan.
They really did. If you watch the video, they really did put a lot of that on the planning board, which, you know, is probably partially my fault because I did tell them at the meeting, you know, just so you guys know, this isn't the last stop. They do have to also go to the planning board and get site plan approval and go through that process, which that kind of put them at ease, I think, thinking, okay, well, there's a whole nother process on the other side of this. It's not just you get this permit and you're good to go. So there may have been some false security, I think, that they felt by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, from the neighbor's perspective, they don't see any action or non-action that triggers the town saying, stop.
Well, we've told them stop many times. Yeah. But, I mean,
There's no penalty, they could just ignore it.
they're currently in violation, which has a minimum of $100 per day per violation fine that we could assess on this, which the minimum right now, last I calculated, was over 75 grand if we were to take them to court to try and get that, which the select board may do that. You know, would we get that? Probably not. Maybe, who knows? That's up for the court to decide. But the statute and that NOV that they were issued in October 2020 does include language that states, you know, you can be fined a minimum of $100 a day per violation.
And they know that?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a difficult situation because we can't go over there and arrest them for not listening to us. It doesn't work. It would, if we were able to do that, it would make things a lot easier. But, you know, we can't do that. So we can tell someone to stop all we want, and until we have something from a judge saying we have an order that you have to comply, sheriff's department's not going to care.
And because they've been there since 2015, and it went for quite a few years before anyone complained, I think a judge is going to have some sympathy to their plight, as well as their neighbors.
Possibly. Yeah. It's a very difficult situation for everyone, you know, involved.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
All right. Anything else? Move to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor?